To get each mythic technique, you're going to need to go a bit out of your way from the main storyline, but it is well worth it to grab them. Each skill is unblockable, and they also have a chance to terrify enemies if you take someone out with it. In this guide, I'll be going over the locations of each mythic technique and give some general ideas of how to use them. Here's some timestamps for convenience sake, and as always, a like or a comment is very appreciated. All that said, let's talk about the locations. In Act 1, you'll be able to get 2 out of the 4 mythic skills. First, let's talk about Heavenly Strike. Just southwest of the Golden Temple, near the River Falls Bridge, speak with the musician here to begin the quest. You'll do a bit of tracking and eventually be brought to a couple of different enemy groups that you'll need to take out. The quest is pretty straightforward and ends after taking out Yasuhira Koga in a duel. The duel isn't too challenging. My only suggestion would be to try not to play too defensively. Try to get a nice parry in, then stagger and pour on the damage. As far as using Heavenly Strike, you want to stagger an enemy before using it, so that you can take the enemy out. If you're lucky, the other enemies will become terrified. They'll drop to the ground, give you an easy kill, or in some cases, they'll just run away from you. Along with the Heavenly Strike, you can get the Explosive Arrow technique in Act 1, and during this quest you'll gain access to the longbow as well, which is how you're going to use the explosive arrows. Head over to the Hiyoshi Springs, and in the north section you'll be able to start the Curse of Uchitsune quest. It's pretty much a fetch quest. My only piece of advice would be to follow the purple flowers as best as you can. You'll travel to a couple of different areas before finally finishing up the quest with a duel. The explosive arrow technique is really good at crowd control when you're up against a group of enemies and you need some breathing room. Feel free to fall back for a bit, shoot an explosive arrow, and get them off of you. It kind of acts as a grenade where it has a little bit of a blast radius. While the enemy units are on fire, you can finish them off pretty quickly. In Act 2, you'll get access to a quest called The Spirit of Yarikawa's Vengeance, which is found northwest of Akishima Village. Just like the Explosive Arrow quest, more of the same here. You'll be traveling to multiple locations of white smoke. Just look for the pillars of smoke to know where to go. Eventually you'll duel with the Spirit and be rewarded with the Dance of Wrath skill. This technique is an upgraded version of Heavenly Strike. It'll use 3 resolve in total, and the range for it isn't as good as Heavenly Strike. I prefer using Heavenly Strike over this attack, but it can have its uses. It seems more helpful when you're in a fray with multiple enemies and you just want to decrease their numbers pretty quickly. The last mythic technique you'll find is in Act 3, north of Jogaku Temple. The quest is going to be called the Undying Flame. This quest has a bit of a gimmick to it. You'll be scaling this mountain and you'll need to travel from campfire to campfire before you freeze. Freezing will decrease your health, but more than anything, it makes it more difficult to see what you're doing and where you're going. I suggest not traveling too far from the fire that you're currently at before you have a good idea of where the next campfire is. Along the path you'll fight dogs, there's even a bear, and I would say just run past them until you're at the next campfire. They're just there to distract you and take up time while you freeze anyway. Once you've reached the top of the mountain, you'll finish the quest with yet another duel and gain the Way of the Flame technique. This skill is pretty good because it allows you to attack enemies free of having to stagger them. You'll also have the added bonus of lighting enemies on fire, which will make enemies a lot easier to take out, especially in Act 3 when they have a lot more health. So that's it, all 4 mythic skill locations, how to get them, a little bit how to use them. You'll be kicking ass in no time.